Hello everyone. We have a game with the black pieces against Ice Rocket Fine Magic, rated 1520. He opens up with D4, not the target of any of our speedrun openings, but a large portion of your games will be D4, so you need a response. This time we'll go with the Chebanenko Slav, the A6 Slav variation. So he brings out his bishop, and I don't know why I said Slav. I mean, I was preparing to go into a Slav, that's why I said it, but he never played C4, so technically it's not any of that. He just develops his bishop. He might go into a London or Jobava London. We don't know. So we just bring our knight out towards the center, and we see which opening he's actually playing. Is he going to go into a London? Maybe. Okay, so he goes for the Jobava London setup. However, we already played c6, which stops any knight b5 ideas. So we don't have to make any special accommodation. And now knight c3 doesn't even make sense with the fact we already played c6. So we're happy to see it because c4 is more critical from white. Now we can freely just develop our bishop. We have no reason to play the move a6. So for example, if I move my bishop, um, in the actual Slav lines, I was going to play a6 to prevent ideas of queen b3, but he can't even play a move like that. So you don't automatically play what you memorize from your chessable, right? You adjust to what the opponent does. So he hits the bishop. You could take the knight and speed up his bishop development. It's playable. You could also retreat. He kicks it, retreat. Maybe he kicks. No, maybe he jumps in here and hits your bishop. We can test the knight. Then he hunts the bishop. I'm just going to give it up for the knight. Ruin his pawn structure. His king will be safe, and he does stop the knight. But I have a pawn on the e-file. White's not better. So I can't play e5 because it's not available. And even if I prepare it with one move, still not available. So I'm just going to stick with the simple e6. Because I don't have a light square bishop, these pawns act as mini bishops, light square mini bishops. So they're going to cover the light squares in place of my bishop that I don't have. And then my other bishop can move freely. So he develops his bishop and aims this way. Fine. If I hit his bishop, his dark square bishop, he can just hide it. Otherwise, I would maybe hit it. I mean, it's very reasonable to prepare castling, and you might as well contest his most active piece. Sure, it takes away your bishop, but at least you get to put your queen there. He's castling, so now we should probably just castle or bring the knight here. Let's castle. Now he really wishes he had c3 or c4 in, maybe to create some batteries on the light square, but he can't do that. Unless he retreats his knight, maybe he should do that. Okay, he moves his queen and creates a battery the other way, which makes less sense. He's aiming down the e-file. Maybe he's going to push the f-pawn with rook. In any case, we want to break and fight for the center with one of these pawn breaks. We don't just want to develop and work around the pawn structure, because even though like we're kind of equal with these d pawns, but he has the potential to play c4, and we would want to meet that extra space he has with space of our own. He hasn't played it though, so now instead of fighting for like equality, if we can get these in, we'd be fighting for an advantage, because then we would have a little more space. In any case, we can't play e5 because it's defended many times. We could play c5 if we're willing to take back with the queen. which I am, so I'm going to play it. I would rather put my knight on the c6 square. It's a more active square than d7. So although a lot of you might have gone knight d7 trying to take this way, I'm going to take this way and put my knight to its natural square. And my position's solid enough. I don't have any bishops, but I don't need bishops. And now that he gave up his dark square bishop, I can try to maybe do something like this because of the weird spot he put his queen. He's most likely going to stop that though, but it does have queen support, so he can only really stop it with a pawn. Okay, so he takes, we take. Okay, now there's no queen support. He goes a3, maybe hinting at b4, but that hangs a knight. So I'm going to encourage that by developing a knight. He should move this knight. I thought he was going to move it here, but he put the queen there. He might go just to hit the queen, but then it can never really reach its king again after it hits a4. My queen's just going to go here again. So he does go for it. Okay, so I'm just going to go back to the centralized square. Maybe he can try to play b4 and try to stick a knight here. Otherwise, why is your knight here? It looks kind of dumb. We have a semi-open file for our rooks, so that makes things easier as well as far as what to do. He goes c3, kind of stopping any pressure that rooks would provide, also taking away these squares from our knight. That's fine. We could hunt the bishop, but he could move it somewhere. And is there a point? I mean, you could just shuffle over to the king side. You could go to c4. All interesting. If I go to the side and he pushes one of these pawns, takes, queen over. I don't think that's necessarily good for me. So let's just bring a rook over to the c file. Okay. Helpful improving moves look like doubling, a6, a6 b5 maybe, knight somewhere if we can plant a knight on c4. Kind of, if you look at the pawns, they face this way. So if we could play in this section like this. So he goes b4, which severely weakens the c file. That pawn was the pillar of strength holding up the c file. Now, super weak. So all I need to do is move my knight. He's trying to go here, but I don't care. I mean, he really weakened the c file. The c3 and the c4 squares, terribly so. So I'm going to jump my knight in, attacking the bishop and looking at the c4 square and opening up my rook because it was blocking it. Okay, so he jumps his knight in. What does this threaten? The pawn. Defends the bishop. I'm inclined to kick the knight. And I don't see what he does. He can undouble his pawns, but I don't really care. I could also maybe take it. So boom, boom, boom. I mean, that's definitely playable. It's hardly necessary, though. So let's just kick it. If he hits our queen, we have to stay on the dark diagonal to protect our knight. And I was kind of hoping he would just move his bishop instead of all this, so I could just plant my knight on c4, which is nice. But maybe I just take the bishop since he didn't move it. He takes with the queen, and then maybe I could reroute my other knight there, since it doesn't really have a future here. Because if I go to h5 and induce g3, all it does is let his king go to g2, and it kind of strengthens it for him. So he moves his knight this way. I thought he might go to the center. Although I'll just take it with the pawn. So I'm hallucinating. Um, yeah, his knight's terrible. I guess this guy has to go here. But now his pawn's hanging. So this comes with a double attack, doesn't it? So I get the pawn, but also I guess he has to withdraw the bishop to protect the knight. But then we get a free doubling because the bishop is hit, and it's going to block his rooks, which is nice. Okay, now he goes for a different avenue. This is another possibility, but it looks way worse because now you can't even put a rook there. So I'm just not going to take. I'm just going to double my rooks casually. He might move his bishop, but like so I can't take it, but that's fine because the c4 square is nice for my knight. My knight's sitting nice where it is. Okay, so he does hit my rook, so I'll just lift it to maybe a dark square. Okay. And I already got both of my rooks through this avenue, so I don't need to use the c8 square to, so he's not actually controlling this square in a meaningful way. If my rooks were back on f8 and a8 and they needed to come to the c file, this could be very annoying, but they're already in the game. So I might even be able to trap this bishop with some type of clever b5 idea if I can protect that square, or who knows. So he goes and kicks the knight. I can't jump it here. So let's go to the square I was intending, or I can create a stronger counter threat. But what does that accomplish? I don't want to play around right now with 3 minutes on my clock, so let's just go here. It gives his bishop a chance to trade, but okay. We'll get two rooks in his face. And this looks very annoying, and we're up a pawn. And all of our pieces have good squares, and that's the most important thing. Our structure is solid, that's another important thing. Okay, so now he's making, you see he voluntarily makes the move. I said that's why it's not good to induce it. It might help his position after all. It also protects this pawn, that's why he did it though. Improve our knight. Because we have nothing left to bring in the game. Or run out of time. Let's improve the knight. And not run out of time. All of our pieces look great. Our queen, okay. We can reroute it because of what's happening. Maybe we triple stack. Maybe we break in the center and just give it scope. Can attack either pawn. Options. You can play it in different ways. Breaking in the center is riskier, but might be just better, like a lot stronger. But you mess up your structure, so if you're not accurate or you make a dumb move, it could hurt you. Whereas tripling is like much more brain dead. Okay, so he goes, vacates the square and hits this, but now I can go here, right? And now it's kind of deadly. So I'm going to get out of the way with tempo. He moves the queen. This looks, if my queen was in here, like if it was anywhere here, it would be checkmate with some sacrifices. What about this one? Knight protects. We'll give it a try. Maybe we get free doubling. You see, so the first step of rooks going through an open file is the vertical doubling, and then the goal is to do the horizontal on the 7th. Now it's very hard to do, but if you get it, it's usually just game over. So if I go here, the knight's hanging. My rook's protected, so I don't need the knight. I can move it. And I think a sack is in order. Although he could take with the queen, which is weird. Unnatural, but if he takes that way, then I take here? No, because I need the pawn removed. So what if I take this pawn? Then he takes with the rook. I need to get my queen past this barrier, so I think e5, so I have access. Then I could checkmate him. There's a checkmate pattern right here with these rooks, and this placement of this castling, if I can get rid of the f-pawn. by sacking. So maybe I can lure his queen. Well, he can't go here. There's no point in going here. If he puts a rook over... Well, the knight's hanging, so he sacks the queen. Okay, so we'll just take the queen. Okay, now he's going for trades, so let's see if we can improve our queen. We can go through the c file or just break. I really want to go to c5 with this pawns here. Okay, I'll just go through the c file because I have a minute. And you can also do it this way. So now we could plant the knight here, but that would block our queen and then make me feel really dumb. Although I guess we could go d4 and open it up this way. Although now that we don't have a rook, we don't have the mates, so... Okay, he attacks the knight. Attack a pawn. Pin doesn't matter. Maybe we leave this pawn here so he can never reroute. And in that case, let's just... Okay, now we will break with d5 just so we can keep this construction. And even though it looks cool to go here, I'm going to play a6 to stop the knight. Okay, he hangs a pawn. Perfect. Easier conversion for me. And maybe resigns. I didn't want to push because even though it looks cool, like you're double supporting the knight, it opens up his knight to reroute 1,000 times and then get here. So he moves his king. Okay, let's push it past pawn and see what he does. We have a bunch of pieces here, so I'm sure something will pop up. Although we have a minute. Okay, let's kick it again just to see what he does. We have a back rank issue I just noticed, so I think I'm going to throw in h5 real quick. Just so I don't blunder mate or something dumb. I could also just get my queen in. I could also just push the pawn. I'm going to push the pawn a third time in a row. Then I'm going to queen. So I just pushed it 4 times. Actually, that doesn't work. Okay, I miscalculated. Whoops. It was just a pawn after all. Not actually a queen, right? Okay, now I'm hitting his rook. Gotta get my knight off the rim. Let's take with the pawn just so we can move it to the queening square faster than if we take with the queen. Okay, let's just take that. Oops, hit a piece hanging. He deflected my attention. We just give a random check. Random check, scoop the rook. Go back, cut off the king. Fastest way to mate, or the most brain dead, is to get a second queen. So that was a pretty decent game by the 1500. It lasted for 47 moves, which is a lot. So I don't know why. I was kind of on autopilot here. And you definitely don't need to play c6 because he didn't play c4. You know, this isn't the queen's gambit. So you can also play the knight out first to stay flexible and see what he does. But I played c6 because in my mind I had already moved the white pawn for him to c4, which is not how chess works. And he didn't do it. But I had already made the pawn move, so I just continued with the setup. Development in center. And c6 isn't a bad move. I wouldn't have necessarily played it if he didn't play c4 if I was paying attention. Okay, so he puts the knight. I don't like this. We just develop and pressure the center. And you could retreat it, but since I put it here already, I don't want to waste time. I'm just taking the knight, doubling his pawns. It's not giving me any type of advantage, but just an equal game. And now center and light square replacement mini bishops. Development center, removing active pieces. Force move. King safety. And now I feel like it's important to note the move c5 here as opposed to knight d7 or h6 or something like that. When you need to fight for the center, it's time sensitive because you never know when they're gonna play, let's say, this pawn chain and prevent that idea, and then you never get it in and you never get that space. So if you're not gonna do it, you have to make sure they can't prevent it with, knight a4 clamping down or any idea, whatever resource. So it's important I do it immediately. Force move. And now you say, okay, well, what about the space? Well, what happened is he got rid of his d pawn, so he's no longer controlling these squares. So I got my space out of that because now I'm the only one who, with a pawn in the center. He doesn't have his anymore. So now we have the space advantage. His pawn structure is worse. Okay, he has one bishop, slightly in development, pretty much equal. Black is preferable if anything. Okay, development in center. Force move. You didn't have to move here, but you had to move your queen. Okay, development to the most logical square. And it says black is half a pawn better. So we're not up anything, but we have a slight advantage. And now it goes, because of his weak move that I mentioned earlier, it's already -1. Positionally, we're going to win a pawn in the future. That's kind of what it means. So we improve a piece kind of for free because these, both the bishop and the c4 square, are great for the knight. And we just make the most obvious move, kicking a piece on our side of the board. And as of this moment, it's -2.2. So pretty much winning for black. And that's because he's hanging this pawn. That knight on a4 was defending this pawn. So he shouldn't have gone on this operation. Or if he did, he should have went back. Like once I kick his knight, he should have went back where he was to defend the pawn. Which is still kind of bad for him, but not immediately losing because I take the pawn with mega threats. So, and my position just looks harmonious. There's nothing complicated or chaotic about it. So I just double for free. Improving move, developing move. And this is a pseudo move. It doesn't actually do anything, as I mentioned. Misplace the bishop because I don't really need the square anymore. Another move, it's another one move threat that, if anything, is improving my pieces. Improve my rook, now I can improve my knight. It's -3. Totally crushing. He takes the knight. Pick whichever rook you want and take back. I chose to stay more active. Now I'm improving a piece towards the king, and if this f4 pawn wasn't here, there would be checkmating sequences with sacrifices. But this pawn, luckily, is here and just happened to stop. Like if my queen was on the light diagonal, he just got lucky in a lot of ways as far as his king. But at the same time, I did give him that pawn, and I said his king would be safer for it. Here you go. But positionally, we're dominating on the queen side, and that was the goal. So we improve a piece for free. Improve a piece for free. Boom. So we just got in like 3 to 5 free moves where we got to double our rooks with threats, vertically, and now horizontally, which is the real deadly one. And that's just worth so much. So that's why he sacks his queen, because there's nothing left to do. We initiate trades, putting our pieces on their best squares. And then he just blunders everything. The point I was making is this pawn, like let's say it's our turn, might look nice here because like, ooh, double. But that's in a different type of middle game where you need to have the extra protection and whatever they call it, Pillsbury knighted, and it might be nice in that position. But here, why let his knight roam to c5 if I can keep my pawn here? You don't need a double protection because the rook's not going to take, and if it does, that's good for you anyway. So that's an extra bonus. And then here, I mean, a lot of people might be like, okay, what do I do? This is defended, this is defended. You can infiltrate with your queen and attack everything. That looks like it wins material immediately. But so does my sequence, which is also forcing. So I was just looking for a forcing move. good looking forcing move. Boom, I hit the knight. Boom, I hit the knight. Boom, I hit the rook. And then here, I don't know why I thought um, I had a tactic here, but he just takes the queen. He just takes the queen because I have back rank issues, so I can't move the knight. So that's annoying. And I can't move my queen to attack because if he takes and I take, I still get mated. So I just made some lift. The evaluation doesn't change at all when he takes that pawn. That's the funny part. It's still -6. Okay. Now we're just dancing around a little bit. Meaningless moves. And then he hangs the knight. That was a perfect game. All zeros. 97% was 19. Well, this goes to show you that even though technically c6 is not the perfect move in this position, to me anyway, and even though technically bringing your bishop out and taking immediately may not be the absolute perfect thing to do, it's perfectly playable and practical enough for humans that this, you know, you can still win games. I still get my 97% accuracy. It doesn't call them mistakes or anything. I'm just looking for more questionable moves by me that the engine should question. Yeah, but no, this was super easy. Like, the moves were very straightforward, so this all makes sense. Good game. Good game by my opponent. Um, it's funny that it doesn't even list my pawn move as a... Hold on, when I get a queen... Okay, it goes from -8.7 to -6.5. So you did just give up the pawn, but it doesn't call it an inaccuracy even, which is funny. Okay. Good luck in your chess. Submit your rapid games in my Discord. Goodbye.